Today, we are going to crack open the customer's mind. We're digging into the real science of how people actually notice, process, and remember information. And all of this is grounded in the amazing work of Professor Alexander Chernev. So let's get right into it.
Let's just kick things off with the one question that probably keeps you up at night. You pour so much time, money, and creativity into your message, so why does most of it just seem to vanish? Well, the answer isn't about coming up with a cleverer slogan. It's about understanding the brain's built-in security system.
You've got to think of our brains as the world's best bouncers at the most exclusive club, our own consciousness. Every single second, they're getting blasted with information. And their main job, their survival job, is to filter nearly all of it out. Most of what you put out there is processed subconsciously and never even makes it past the velvet rope. So your first battle isn't with your competitor down the street, it's with the human brain's own filter.
So to win that battle, here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to talk about how to win the attention battle in the first place. Then we'll get into how to tap into what your customer actually needs to make your message stick. From there, we'll look at how a thought goes from being fleeting to, well, forever. Then we'll see how memory literally creates your customer's reality. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the one key takeaway you can bring back to your business.
All right, Part 1, winning the attention battle. This is all about earning that ticket past the brain's filter, getting into your customer's conscious thought, even when there's just so much noise out there.
What's really cool is that it basically boils down to two fundamental levers you can pull to grab someone's attention. The first is all about the physical stuff, appealing directly to our raw senses. But the second one, that's much deeper. It's about creating meaning and relevance for the mind. Let's start with the physical one first.
You know, our brains are hardwired for survival, and because of that, there are certain visual cues that are just impossible for us to ignore. Big things. Warm colors, like reds and oranges, they literally have the longest wavelength. Sharp contrast, and, of course, movement. For thousands of years, these things could signal danger or opportunity. Today, they just mean a customer is way more likely to notice your product on a shelf or your ad in their feed. It's a primal, powerful shortcut right to their attention.
Okay, let's do a quick experiment. Just take a look at this slide. Simple series of numbers. Pretty easy to scan. Nothing really jumps out at you, right? Your brain just kind of processes it and is ready to move on. Okay, now let's just change one little thing.
Whoa, see that? I bet your attention didn't just drift over to the word apple. It snapped to it. You literally couldn't not see it. That feeling, that automatic pull of your focus, is a perfect little demonstration of something called the isolation effect.
And this just nails the point, doesn't it? The brain latches onto and remembers things that break the pattern. This is exactly why a uniquely shaped bottle pops on a cluttered shelf, or why that legendary Think Small ad from Volkswagen with that tiny car in a huge ocean of white space was so unforgettable. Being different demands attention.
But look, physical triggers will only get you so far. To really hold someone's attention, you've got to appeal to their mind. You have to make your message actually mean something to them. So let's figure out how to do that. Our attention is automatically, almost magnetically, pulled toward information that helps us with our goals. And these goals usually fall into three buckets. First, you've got functional needs. If you're trying to lose weight, your brain becomes a heat-seeking missile for diet info. Second, emotional needs. Feeling bored? Suddenly, ads for exciting vacations are everywhere. And third, identity needs. If you see yourself as a huge football fan, you'll spot any mention of your team from a mile away. Your message wins when it lines up with one of these active needs.
Now, beyond those core needs, there's another really powerful magnet for attention: curiosity. Our brains just hate having gaps in our knowledge. We are compelled to fill them. You can trigger this by showing someone something that's a bit complex, totally new, or uncertain. And yeah, even a little bit of fear or a warning can make people lean in and pay attention, just to figure out the solution.
Okay, so you did it. You cut through the noise, you captured their attention. High five. But that's really only half the battle. The big question now is, how do you make sure your message isn't just a flash in the pan, but something that actually sticks around?
Information goes on this little journey. First, it hits our sensory memory, which is like a subconscious flash that lasts for less than a second. If our attention system flags it as important, it gets promoted up to short-term or working memory. Think of this as your mental sticky note. It stays there for about 10 to 15 seconds, and only if it's really processed there does it have a chance to make it to the holy grail, long-term memory.
And what's wild is the contrast here. Short-term memory is incredibly tiny. It can only hold about 7 things at a time and for just a few seconds.
Long-term memory, on the other hand, has a basically unlimited capacity. So the whole game is about the transfer. How do you get from one to the other? Well, simple repetition helps, but the real secret to getting into that permanent storage is creating strong associations, connecting the new information to stuff the customer already knows.
Now, here's a really fascinating quirk about our working memory. It's called the Zeigarnik effect, and it basically shows that our brains absolutely hate unfinished business. An open loop, an incomplete task, creates this kind of mental tension that keeps all the related info right at the top of our minds. But as soon as the task is done, the bill is paid, the tension is gone, and the brain just dumps the information. This is the science behind why cliffhangers in TV shows or to-be-continued ads are just so powerful. So we've grabbed attention, we've encoded a memory, but this is where it gets really mind-bending. Those memories we've stored, they aren't perfect little files. Our brain uses them to create these mental shortcuts that actively shape how we see the world and the decisions we make.
Let's be honest, our brains can be pretty lazy. When we're faced with a really difficult question, like what's the statistical probability of X, we subconsciously swap it for a much easier one. How easily can I think of an example of X? This is a memory-based heuristic. It's a mental shortcut, and it has huge implications for how your customers judge things like risk, quality, and even value.
Okay, let's see one of these shortcuts in action. I want you to make a quick gut judgment here. Don't think too hard, just go with what feels right. All right, here are the two options. On one hand, you have shark attacks. They're vivid, terrifying, they're always in the news, they make blockbuster movies about them. And on the other hand, you have falling out of bed. It's mundane, nobody talks about it, it's almost silly. Right now, your brain is scanning its memory. Which one comes to mind faster, more vividly? That ease of recall is exactly what's guiding your answer.
And here's the reality. It's not even close. You are so much more likely to die from falling out of bed. This is the availability heuristic in its purest form. Our brains confuse how easily we can remember something with how often it actually happens. Because shark attack stories are so memorable and so publicized, we completely overestimate the risk. What's easy to remember simply feels more true.
And here's one more quick but critical shortcut. A lot of the time, instead of recalling all the specific features and benefits of a product, we just recall the overall feeling we have about it. Did I like it? Did it make me feel good? This is why the customer experience and the emotional side of your brand are so important. Often that feeling is the only thing that gets remembered, and that feeling is what drives the next decision. So we've gone on quite a journey here, from the initial fight for attention, through the gates of memory, and all the way to the mental shortcuts that are driving decisions every day. The big question is, what do we do with all this? How do we turn this science into a real strategy? You know, it really all comes down to this single question. Are you creating a brand that is distinct enough to get noticed in the first place? Is your message meaningful enough to actually be processed? And is the experience you deliver positive and memorable enough to be easily recalled when it matters most? Because in the end, in the customer's mind, what is easy to remember becomes true. And what's easy to forget, well, for all intents and purposes, it never really existed at all.